It's the middle of the night, and you're awake. Lying in the dark, eyes open, and your first thought is, something's wrong with me. Why can't I just sleep through the night like I'm supposed to? But for most of human history, waking up in the dark wasn't a problem. It was the plan. So, how did humans actually sleep before beds and bedrooms? Let's start with what your bed actually is: a raised, padded platform in a room with a door, built to hold one or two people through a single unbroken block of sleep. You think of it as a basic human need, but almost every part of it is a recent invention. The private bedroom, the 8-hour night, the mattress you don't share with anyone. For 99% of human history, none of that existed. And the way people actually slept would feel, to you, completely alien. So how did they do it? The short answer is together, on the ground in 2 shifts. The long answer is way more interesting. Let's start with the most basic fact, the one we've completely forgotten. For almost all of human history, nobody slept alone. Sleeping by yourself, in your own bed, in your own room, is a luxury so new that most humans who ever lived would find it bizarre and a little sad. For hundreds of thousands of years, people slept in a pile. Whole families shared one space, one bed of leaves or skins, bodies pressed together. And this wasn't just about closeness, it was survival. Before central heating, the night was genuinely dangerous. Cold could kill you. So you slept against other warm bodies, sharing heat, taking turns near the fire. Babies slept on their mothers. Children slept in a tangle of siblings. And it stayed this way for a very long time. Even just a few centuries ago, it was completely normal for a traveler to share a bed with a total stranger at an inn. Not romantic, not weird, just what a bed was for. A bed was a warm surface you shared, the way you'd share a bench. Your great-great-grandfather had a co-sleeping arrangement with a stranger named Gerald. You have a weighted blanket. And that surface was usually the ground. The oldest bed we've ever found isn't a bed at all by your standards. In a cave in South Africa called Sabudu, archaeologists found bedding that is around 77,000 years old. Layers of compacted grasses and reeds, topped with aromatic leaves from a tree that naturally repels insects. Stone Age humans were laying down bug-proof mattresses made of plants. But it was still, essentially, a mat on the floor. And for most of history, that's what sleep was. A mat, some straw, a pile of skins, on the ground. The raised bed, the frame, the platform, was for a long time a symbol of status. Pharaohs had them, kings had them. Ordinary people slept low, near the earth, near the fire, near each other. Now you might think that sounds miserable. No mattress, no privacy, sleeping in a heap. But here's the thing the modern world forgets. They weren't trying to sleep the way you do, because the night itself was a different shape. This is the part that genuinely changes how you'll see your own nights. For most of human history, people didn't sleep in one solid block. They slept in 2. A historian named Roger E. Kirch spent years digging through old diaries, court records, medical books, and letters, and he found the same thing again and again in hundreds of sources. People had a first sleep and a second sleep. You'd go to bed not long after dark. You'd sleep for a few hours. Then, sometime after midnight, you'd naturally wake up, and you'd just be awake, calmly, for an hour or two, in the quiet dark. This waking time even had names. People called it the watch. And then, when you were ready, you'd drift into your second sleep until morning. This wasn't insomnia. It wasn't a problem. It was the normal architecture of a human night for thousands of years. And that hour in the middle was strangely precious. People used it to do all sorts of things. They'd pray or reflect on their dreams, which were still fresh and vivid. They'd tend the fire or have quiet sex, which doctors of the time actually recommended doing then, after the rest of the first sleep. Some people would get up and do small chores, or talk softly with whoever was lying next to them. Some would even slip out to visit a neighbor. It was a calm, half-lit pocket of time that belonged to no one but you, in the middle of the night. And almost every human who ever lived had it. You don't. So where did it go? The answer is light. For most of human history, when the sun went down, the world went truly dark. Your night was long. 12, 14 hours of darkness, far more than anyone needs for sleep, which is exactly why it broke naturally into two pieces. Then we lit it up. First with gas lamps in the cities, then in 1879 with Edison's light bulb. Suddenly, the evening could stretch on for hours after sunset. Bedtimes got later and later. The long night shrank. And when you compress a 14-hour night into a tight 7 or 8 hours, there's no longer room for a gap in the middle. The two sleeps were squeezed into one. Within a few generations, people forgot the old pattern had ever existed. The factory finished the job. Industrial work demanded that everyone be unconscious on schedule and awake on schedule, in one efficient block, so they could be standing at the machines on time. Sleep became something you did all at once, by the clock, to be productive the next day. And as homes got bigger and wealthier, the private bedroom appeared, and then the idea that each person, even each child, should sleep alone behind their own closed door. Privacy in sleep went from impossible to rare to the goal. Here's the cruel part. The middle of the night waking didn't actually disappear. Your body still tries to do it, but because the culture forgot it was ever normal, when you wake at 3 in the morning, you don't think, the time between sleeps. You think, something is wrong with me. We took a natural, peaceful part of the night and turned it into a symptom. We even gave it a clinical name and started taking pills to make it stop. And we know the old pattern is still in there because scientists brought it back. In the 1990s, a researcher named Thomas Ware took a group of modern people and did something simple. He put them in darkness for 14 hours a night, the way our ancestors lived, with no artificial light at all. For the first few weeks, they slept like modern people in one block. But then their sleep cracked back into the ancient shape. They began sleeping in 2 blocks, with a quiet, calm, wakeful period in between, exactly like the old records described. Their bodies remembered a night they had never lived. The 2-sleep pattern wasn't a habit, it was wiring. So let's reconstruct a night before beds. The sun goes down, and the dark is total. You lie down on a mat of grass and skins near the embers of the fire, your family pressed in around you, sharing warmth. You fall asleep early because there's nothing else to do in the dark. A few hours later, you wake, and the house is quiet and black. You're not alarmed. You lie there, warm, listening to the others breathe. Maybe you think about your dreams. Maybe you whisper to someone awake beside you. Maybe you just rest in the stillness. And then, when it's time, you sleep again, until the gray light wakes you for good. You were never alone, never on a schedule, and never afraid of waking in the night. Here's the part that gets me. You have things they never dreamed of. A soft mattress, a warm room, a door you can close, a whole night that belongs to you and no one else. By every measure, you sleep in luxury. And yet, so many of us lie awake at 3 in the morning feeling like we are failing at the one thing every animal can do. We got the private bed. We lost the pile of warm bodies. We got the comfortable mattress. We lost our peace with the dark. For 99% of human history, you slept on the ground, in a heap, in a night with a hole in the middle, and none of it was a problem. Then we made sleep private, padded, and perfectly scheduled. And somewhere in there, the most natural thing your body does, waking gently in the dark, became the thing we lie there and call broken. Maybe nothing is wrong with you at 3 a.m. Maybe a body that's 300,000 years old is just keeping an appointment the modern world forgot to cancel. The dark was never the enemy. We just stopped knowing what to do with the part of the night that belongs only to us.